So from my aspect here, after seeing the KVS data, we can see there's a pretty big angle there. So that's that stuff that was saying -1 degree with your hips, which is over-exaggerated, but that's what it is there. Okay, we're going to ask for that a little bit more. Now, the only way you're going to get there is if we narrow the stance a little. We'll turn your toes out just a little to give you some internal rotation in your hips.
Okay.
And we'll narrow it a hell of a lot and put a little bit more pressure and left hip a little bit higher.
Okay.
There.
Yeah.
So when you first learned how to play, we got told that we had to have a fair amount of pressure on your right foot and you had to get in behind the ball and all that kind of stuff. We now know from all the data, from all the 3D stuff that we've done, it's not the case.
Okay.
From the force plate data that we've got, so force plates are what we stand on and it gives us the measurements of the pressure in your feet. We know that the best players in the world have about 55% of pressure in their lead foot at address.
Okay.
It goes to about 70% into here, but that's more to do with the rotational force of the golf club moving that way. Okay. So if I stand there and I've got the center of mass here and I just move my arms over here, the center of pressure will move there. I haven't moved the center of mass at all. Okay. So, but we all got told that we had to move laterally and turn into our right side and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, which is correct in a feeling, but not in reality from a science standpoint, okay? Because what then happens is we change the contact point with the ground. As soon as that hub moves, we'll change where this contacts on the ground.
Yep.
So we don't want that to move at all, okay? So, this side we know is already good. We've got all the data to show us that that's really good from those angles. Yeah, it's nice and balanced. It's going to change a little when you start to move around. We already know that there's not quite enough rotation here.
Yep.
We already know that then you're going to have to then try and generate something from there. Okay. We know that through impact you're pretty good with the hips, but you're not. What that doesn't tell you is the 6 degrees. Is the 3 degrees of freedom. So we, as far as then forward thrust and things like that, it doesn't tell us that your pelvis is not moving far enough left. For the simple fact that it cannot, because you're so wide in your stance. Okay. So eventually we're going to have that left hip across there.
So it looks more like I'm teeing off the back foot.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So if we then put,
Yeah.
where are we? Let's put some elite level players in there for the time being. There we go. So then when we start looking at these guys, once you watch that right hand screen for me, they bump across.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And they're pushing down to start the downswing, and now from now on in, it's pushing up. So then you've got the golf club coming down this way, and you've got this coming up. Creates some serious speed and force at the base of the golf swing. Okay. Now this is a kid that last week shot 13 under around Belmont to come second in the Lake Macquarie Amateur. So that's essentially our second biggest event in the country, amateur event, behind the Australian Amateur, and traded in the top 20 events in the world. So it's a big event.
Yeah,
He's played 3 US amateurs, 4 US juniors, US pub links. He's an American kid, so he's a good player. He's played at a very, very high level, but he's also an extraordinarily good ball striker. Like his bad day is 10 or 11 greens in regulation. So his average day is 14.3. So greens in regulation. So he can play.
Yeah,
he's a really good ball striker.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we start looking at the way they set up, which is a little bit more pressure on that left foot by the time he gets there. Okay, and he's not quite lined up. The mats are the same as that camera's lined up for you. You'll notice the ball position is slightly different for him. It's a little bit further forward, but you'll also notice that he doesn't have that angle in his leg.
Straight down.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we're going to start with, and we'll do that with KVS with setting your hips a little higher, the left hip a little higher at address, and it'll start making noises at you when you know you're in a good place. And it'll feel quite strange. We're going to use the mirror there in front of you a lot for the simple fact that when we narrow your stance there, you'll feel like you're going to fall over. And then you'll look up and you go, okay, well, it's actually is only shoulder width apart. It's not wider than that. Okay. And we'll just get those feet. So then we'll turn the toes out so you've got some internal rotation of your hips.
Mm-hmm.
So the easiest way to explain that is if I pointed that toe inward that way, I'm not going to be able to turn.
For sure. Close off here.
So if I get you just with feeling like a little duck's disease to start off with your toes out just a tad, that'll give you some room so you can actually go around a little bit more.
Okay.
So we'll change that number from 35 to 45 really, really quickly without you doing much.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And we'll keep some pressure on that left foot.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Any questions from that?
Nah, not really. Not at the moment. Let's see how we go with this. And then,
Yep.
yeah. No, it's just a feeling like when you haven't, like, you know, I don't have a sort of a swing that's cemented at the moment. It's just about, I don't know, if I'm rotating properly or if I was more sort of like, I don't know, it feels like I'm sort of like swinging the hips more like that
Sure.
rather than sort of turning through and getting the club.
Sure.
You know, if it feels like I'm sort of going like this and if I turn like that, if my position in my hands, I don't know, just...
Yep. So if we have a look at the left-hand screen there,
Yeah.
oops, go across to yours, it's actually not moving laterally.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we start looking there, right?
Yeah.
It's
True,
not.
true.
It's not moving laterally. It's because you're set up backwards to start
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's what'll give you the feeling of that. You know, yes, you're pretty tight. You probably don't create enough leverage in, you know, there.
Yep.
But I think you'll find if you actually get this going back, in other words, getting deeper or turning more, we'll start to see a little bit more distance in your knees here. We'll start to see some daylight there.
Uh-huh.
You won't need to try and use your arms quite as much, and you'll sequence it a lot better.
Okay.
So then from my aspect, from the data here, your club data, you know, that's all pretty good. The face was just open.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel that a bit, Like, play cricket at a decent level, and I feel like, you know, when I'm going through a lot of it, sort of blocking it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to do with how your body's working there and where it's coming from.
Uh-huh.
I'm not too disappointed with any of those numbers. You know, from TrackMan side of things, you know, there's some pretty good numbers there. You get across it just a little bit too much on a couple of them. So in other words, that number there. And you probably don't hit down on it enough, but that's because you're backward at address.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, there's some good stuff there. There's some good data there.
Yeah.
We'll lose the open club face side of things,
Yeah.
and we'll get you in a good place, huh?
Sweet.